Good Sunday morning, everybody. How's it going? It's been a little bit since our last video. I've been taking the time to heal up, and I think I am now on the come up, so hopefully we are past the worst of it. Still not all the way there, but we are getting closer, so hopefully soon I'll be able to get back to my planned streaming schedule for June. You never really plan to get sick, especially when you're like me and you just don't get sick all that often. But hopefully we'll be able to get back to bi-weekly Seahawks streams, and maybe I'll even do one or two to make up. But thought it would be a good idea to throw together a video to talk about some of the things that Carroll, mostly Carroll, went over after the mandatory Seahawks minicamp concluded. And there were quite a few things to go over. Only some of it is really compelling. A lot of it is just kind of the stuff that you know he's going to say, the stuff that you expect him to say. But there is some stuff to learn in there, and I want to talk about it a little bit. And of the things that Carroll had to say that were particularly illuminating, a lot of them revolved around Chris Carson, which is why I have this tweet on the screen here. And obviously this is all a couple days old now, so a lot of you guys may already be familiar with this, but not all of you are, and it's worth going over regardless because it's all we have right now. It's the slow season. So, Chris Carson, let's start with him because this is a very important time for Chris Carson. This is a very delicate time for him. When Carroll was asked about Chris Carson, he said that Carson has an important date in 2 weeks to see where he's at coming back from neck surgery. He hasn't been able to get the green light to return to this point. They were hoping he could have been cleared 2 weeks ago, but the doctors said no. He went on to say that Carson is indeed facing the possibility that this is the end of his career. But he does say that Carson is close to getting cleared, just still restricted on the range of motion. And this image on the screen here is the neck hardware that Carson currently has. This little 6-screw arrangement in his, I don't know exactly what you would call that part of the neck. I'm not a doctor, but it's not something I would necessarily be looking to take onto a football field with me. So, quite a few people believe that if Chris Carson does not get good news in 2 weeks, now it's like a week and a half, he will call it a career. Now, I think you guys know my position on the Chris Carson stuff. I haven't really deviated too much from it since the season-ending injury was announced last year. When we extended Chris Carson last offseason, I didn't like it very much. I was kind of down on it. But when I saw the contract details, I was like, okay. You know what? This contract isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. This contract is fine unless the worst case scenario happens. Well, the worst case scenario happened. Carson barely got to play, and then he was out for the season, and it doesn't look like he's going to be getting away from that injury anytime soon. There's no putting this stuff behind him. So, unfortunately, the worst possible outcome happened, and look, I'm not interested in blaming anybody for not seeing that coming. But we're here now. And if Carson does not get good news in, now it's like a week and a half, I hope he's willing to walk away. And there's more than one reason why, right? Like, we all know about the money part of it. I think if he retires, he gets $3 million and we save $3.5 million. But that doesn't even really matter that much because this year is not really about signing free agents anymore. Like, it's not like we're going to turn around and use that money on something else, right? I wouldn't expect that. It's not like we're going to go spend that money on a top free agent so we can try to compete for a Super Bowl this year. That's out the window. But more than that, I just don't need to see... I just don't need to see Chris Carson try to play with this thing if it's really going to inhibit him to this degree. I've said it before, I'll say it again. At this point, it just feels like the Chris Carson thing is going to end badly. And I just can't shake the feeling that if he tries to play football for the Seahawks again, he's either A, never going to actually get on the field. It'll be a thing where he's always like, he's about to get out there. Oh, he's real close. He's real close. Carroll keeps telling us, oh, he'll be out there soon, and then he never plays, or he gets carted off. So I'd like to avoid that. So my hope, honestly, is that in the next couple weeks here, we hear that Chris Carson has decided to retire, or that this is at the very least he's not going to play football again this year, which will inevitably force him to probably never play football again, because at that point it'll be nearly 2 years. So that's the main topic du jour when it comes to these OTAs. I mean, there's a lot of good news. There's a lot of stuff you're like, oh, that player looks good. That player looks good. But that always happens in the OTAs. This Chris Carson stuff, I think, was the most weighty. All right, moving on to some lighter topics. Carroll talked about Metcalf skipping the skipping the minicamp. He said that DK had to make that decision. Contract talks are currently in a pause, and that he seems to expect it will be resolved in the next 6 weeks before training camp, and he continues to be optimistic that a deal will get done. Said that we missed him and we'd love to have him with us. Now, nobody's ever going to trust anything that Pete Carroll ever says again, and they shouldn't. But I maintain my belief that if Metcalf was going to get traded, it needed to happen and should have happened either before or during the draft. If it happens now, I don't like it anywhere near as much. So I kind of feel like it's too late. Now, some people have pointed out that technically it's not too late. Yes, I realize that, people, but I don't think what you get back is going to be nearly as tasty as what it could have been before the draft. And by the way, what you could have gotten before the draft wasn't even that good. Look at what the Titans got for A.J. Brown. So I'm still expecting something to happen. I don't know why this is getting dragged out. I mean, we're watching Cooper Kupp get his big money, which is only going to increase DK's asking price in all likelihood. So I don't know what we're waiting for at this point, but we are. Carroll also talked about the Jody Allen stuff, which I've talked a little bit about on this channel in recent weeks. He said that Jody has never entertained the thought at all of selling the Seahawks, which is cute, but if what we have been told is true, she has literally no choice, so that seems like a very silly thing to say. So, I mean, I guess he can't just come out and say, oh yeah, she's going to sell the team. She doesn't care about this team. She's just trying to get the most money that she can. No, but I don't know who Pete thinks he's fooling unless he's trying to come out and say, no, that report is incorrect. She does not have to sell. So, who the heck knows? But my understanding of the situation is that it's very black and white, cut and dry. She has to sell. All right, now let's get to the actual matter of the players who were on the field during the OTAs, and almost everything Carroll had to say was positive outside of the guys who couldn't play, couldn't practice. And on that topic, he talked about certain players like, I think it was Ken Walker, Bo Melton, Tariq Young. Basically, in a lot of those cases, it seemed like he was basically implying, they weren't really in shape. They weren't ready to go, which seemed to frustrate and disappoint him. There were also some hamstring issues that may have kept them out regardless, but that was kind of amusing. But in terms of some of the positive stuff, let's take a look. So when he was asked about the quarterbacks, Geno said Carroll said that he liked what he saw from both, and that Geno is still ahead, and that Drew is not far behind. Now, from everything I've heard from training camp, if you just take a look at what's happened in camp so far, Drew has played better than Geno. So, obviously, Geno starts in pole position because he was here last year. I understand that. But Drew has looked better according to everything that I've seen. Now, how much does that matter, given the fact that these are, underwear Olympic drills, underwear Olympics? Probably not a lot, but it obviously counts for something. So I'm not surprised that Geno's still ahead, but I maintain my hope that Drew Lock ends up starting week 1. That's way more interesting, way more appealing, way more upside. It's the way I would much prefer things to go. He was complimentary on Noah Fant, said that Noah Fant had maybe the most spectacular camp of anybody, I've heard good things about Fant as well from the beat reporters who are actually there. So that's encouraging. Noah Fant being a quality player for us for these next couple years and beyond is a significant part of that Wilson trade that I think some people are going to kind of let slip from their minds a little bit. So if the Noah Fant part of that trade can work, that will make things go down easier. Obviously, we need the other parts of that trade to work even more, like Cross and what we end up doing with next year's Denver first rounder. But the Fant part of it, I think, gets a little forgotten sometimes. D. Eskridge has been sitting out with a hamstring issue, which is obviously going to get the peanut gallery going a little bit, but doesn't sound like it's going to be anything major. Gabe Jackson has had a procedure on his knee and has been sitting out. So great opportunity for somebody like Phil Haynes to prove that he belongs in the starting role. I like Gabe. I don't think he's a bad player at all, but I don't think there's any real purpose in having him continue to start. So if Gabe Jackson is going to be sitting out, then hopefully Phil Haynes takes the opportunity to impress people. He talked a little bit about Trey Brown and Marquise Blair, whether or not they'll be ready for camp. Blair seems to be likely to be ready for training camp, which is good. This is a big year for him. Trey Brown, he wasn't so sure of, so I would be surprised if Trey Brown's starting week 1. I'll leave it at that. I don't know, but I expect Trey Brown's rehab to take some time into the regular season. Ben Burkervin did a cleanup procedure to try to address some scar tissue. John Radigan is also trying to get ready for camp. I didn't get any indication one way or the other if that was likely, but those are low-level players, so it's not the most important thing in the world. So he mentioned the hamstring issues that I briefly went over with Walker, Young, and Melton. Now, I don't know if the hamstring issues have anything to do with those players being not completely in shape, but Carroll seemed a little bit annoyed by that, so I don't know if it's anything significant. It probably isn't. It is June. You would expect these players to not be 100% in shape by now, but one thing that was notable from the press conference, Carroll was very complimentary about Boye Mafe, says he's the closest fit to Cliff Averill that we've seen, and he's hopeful that Mafe will work with Cliff over the next 6 weeks. Now, I have been pretty vocal about my suspicion that Boye Mafe is not going to have a monster contribution as a rookie. I think he's raw. I think he's going to need some time. I think that this first year, you should be looking at Nwosu and Taylor to start. And then behind them, you are going to have some Mafe, but you're also going to have some Alton Robinson, going to have some Tyreek Smith. You're going to have, maybe there's another guy that we're not even thinking about right now very much. I don't think Mafe gets a ton of time, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that Mafe is going to be a bit of a work in progress. Carroll, despite the hamstring issue that has limited Ken Walker, was very complimentary of what he saw from Ken Walker. Now, Ken Walker is a rookie who I expect to do a lot in 2022, so you're not hearing anything that's unexpected, of course, when it comes to Ken Walker and what he's doing out there. It's pretty much what you would expect given what he did in college and what scouting reports had to say about him. But Carroll was very complimentary of Ken Walker. One of the rookies who really got some attention in minicamp, who is going to be a very, very interesting watch going forward, is, of course, Tariq Woolen. There were a couple of plays where he exhibited his tremendous speed and his length to either make a play or almost make a play on the ball in a spot where most cornerbacks would not have been close. And on the whole, given where Tariq Woolen is in his development as a player, I think there was a lot to be encouraged about when it came to what Woolen brought to the table. Because, again, I'm just not expecting him to be ready anytime soon. But if he's flashing now, that tells you that even if it's not ready now, when he's ready, it's going to be special. And Tariq Woolen did some stuff that got people's attention in training camp. So that's very encouraging. That's about it for the actual stuff of substance. Carroll talked about the passing camp they're going to have next week. The only thing I want to bring up that's like actually like a problem, like not a it is what it is problem, right? Like yes, Carson, that situation is a problem, but there's nothing we can do about it. The DK thing is a problem, but I don't think it's a real problem, at least not yet. Some of the hamstring issues, some of the injuries, like it's a problem, but injuries, I mean, this is a violent sport. What the Seahawks are doing on their offensive line in some of these camps, in some of these practice plays, it irritates me. We are still seeing Jake Curhan play guard when we have plenty of evidence that he can't play guard well. When he tried to play guard last year a couple times, it was a disaster. Stone Forsythe is playing some right tackle when that's not catering to his skill set in the slightest. We're still seeing Damian Lewis play left guard as far as I know. We're seeing guards get moved to center. We're seeing centers get moved to guard. We're moving tackles to guard. It's the same stuff. And for all the things that I like about what this team is doing compared to recent years, where I look at their draft and I go, okay, this draft feels different than previous drafts. I like this. This decision tree looks a lot better than previous decision trees. This is one area where I feel like we still have a ways to go. We need to get it out of our heads that just because a player is good at a certain position, that means he's going to be good at other positions that are different. That's not how it works. Jake Curhan is okay at right tackle. He's okay. That doesn't mean he's going to be okay at guard. And if you want to do it a little bit in practice so that Greg Eiland can get more snaps at tackle, then I guess that's okay. But I don't want to see this stuff carry over to the regular season where, I mean, last year, some of the stuff that just happened, as much as I've been okay with this offseason so far, you think back to some of the stuff that was allowed to happen last year, like Kyle Fuller getting to start at guard when you had Phil Haynes just sitting on your practice squad. It makes you think, like, how did these guys keep their job? How did these idiots keep their job? Nobody should be doing that. Even little kids who play Madden all day know you can't get away with that stuff. And you hope they're moving away from it, but then you look at what these guys are doing in practice and you're like, well, it is practice, but if I see this stuff in the game, it's going to give me PTSD. So hopefully when it actually starts to matter, we don't see that anymore. Certain players can only play certain offensive line positions. It is what it is. Deal with it. Stop moving them around. You're just going to kill their development. But other than that, I'm sitting pretty happy right now. So I'll see you guys later. Go Hawks. Twitch streams later. Let me know what you think.